This is a very quick video. The Retired Scapegoat's Guide to a Distracted World, Turning Hyper-Awareness into Unshakable Peace. First off, when I think of scapegoat, I think of, I actually put pictures in it, but never mind, it's not in that one. When you spend the first half of your life cast as the designated family scapegoat, survival forces you to depend and develop an elite high definition observation engine. You have to read the room before your foot touches the threshold. You learn to track micro shifts in tone, the subtle scent of impending drama, and the unconscious scripts people use to survive their own unaddressed baggage. For a long time, that hypervigilance felt like a curse. It was a defense mechanism forged in chaos. Watching households burn through financial windfalls and blame generic bills, witnessing friends duplicate their parents' exact addictions while crying about the state of the world, or watching workplace cliques trade their dignity for happy hour numbing sessions. Eventually, you retire from the role. You walk off the stage, hand back their script, and realize something liberating. You don't have to stay in character just because everyone around you refuses to break theirs. Once you step outside the herd, the entire matrix of human behavior opens up. You see the autopilots trying to build skyscrapers on the silt of low effort. You see the cell phone zombies drifting through public spaces like cars slamming on their brakes without a blinker. The question isn't how to make everyone else wake up. The real question is, how do you live in a world operating on default mode without letting their nose hijack your peace? Most people are not moving through reality with deliberate intent. They are moving through an algorithmic trance. They complain about loneliness while staring into the infinite slot machine of dating apps on their couch. They complain about debt while signing up for credit cards that didn't break their bathroom window to force them into compounding interest. They complain about physical burnout while fueling their bodies with sugar, alcohol, and zero plain water, carrying a metabolic and emotional tab that comes due the second they hit their 30s. When you refuse to disturb their patterns, people will hand you the complete A to Z of who they are. They will show you their lack of detail, their performative titles, their dirty living rooms, and their low investment what you doing fishing lines. The old version of you might have tried to fix it, manage it, or negotiate with it. The retired scapegoat does something more powerful. You simply take the data, adjust your perimeter, and leave them exactly where they're standing. Hyperawareness is not a death sentence. There is a common misconception that being hyper aware means living in constant misery. It only feels like a death sentence when you believe it is your job to police, correct, or be victimized by everything you notice. When you spend 5 years working on ships offshore, your baseline for order, silence, and spatial logistics changes permanently. Coming back to land makes modern public behavior feel abrupt. You notice people taking up entire aisles, shouting on speakerphone, or stopping dead in the middle of a walkway to check a notification. When those social icks flare up, you have to run a fast internal circuit breaker. This person is not harming me. They're on their path and I am on mine. Their distraction does not dictate my destination. Normalize the noise, protect the sanctuary. If public spaces are loud, tuning it out is a skill. Shrinking yourself, huffing and puffing, or abandoning your favorite spots because people lack self awareness only gives them unearned power over your day. The gym protocol. When the gym floor is packed, you have two clean options: pivot to a low traffic hour or stand your ground. Use your manners, get your reps in, and keep your headphones locked. You don't surrender your routine to someone else's screen addiction. Part three, part one, apparently. You cannot control the grid, but you have absolute authority over your own nervous system. Watch what happens when someone cuts you off or someone rides your bumper like a caravan of horses on a resort beach. Your shoulders rise, your grip tightens, and your breathing turns shallow. That is an automatic cortisol spike trying to drag you into an emotional hike you never agreed to take. Regulating your breath cuts the wires on the bomb. You take practical, unemotional precautions. Someone driving recklessly, change lanes. Someone tailgating, let them pass. Need accountability. Run your dash cams and know your local jurisdictions. Grocery store pack wall to wall, pack extra patience for the space hoggers, grab your clean fuel and check out without commentary. I am not the Scarlet Witch. I cannot bend the fabric of reality with pure willpower to make every driver signal, every worker attentive, or every acquaintance self aware. When you compare a crowded grocery aisle or a slow checkout line to the genuine danger of survival mode and structural traps you survived in your past, this is technically nothing. Letting minor daily friction steal your today's guarantee you will spend all your days miserable. Your peace is far too expensive to spend on an autopilot's bad turn signal. As I catch up in slides, damn, I didn't even know it generated this many slides. I guess walking in sovereignty. Why do I have illiterate moments where it's like I be reading books for days and then when it's look, listen. Anyways, walking in sovereignty. I just never seen it spelt like that. Sovereignty. I guess reclaiming your autonomy means understanding that obligation is outlawed. You do not owe people a debate when their standards don't match yours. You do not owe your family a continuation of their debt and blame cycle. You do not owe a low effort acquaintance access to your phone just because they sent a generic greeting. Build your foundation on solid rock. Keep your living space clean, your fuel pure, your vehicle maintained, and your boundaries airtight. Let the hard keep running the herd keep running their circus, playing their assigned roles and trading their sovereignty for short-term comfort. You survived the fire. You took the notes. You built the sanctuary. Now walk through this world with your head up. Breathe steady and your peace entirely untouched. And spoiler alert, this is actually not me preaching to the choir. This is a conversation I had to have with myself because returning back to land with PTSD was very miserable initially, especially at the beginning stages of walking again and then just being immersed in society. Because for me, at a certain point, when I was still on social media, I started believing some of the things people would say. I thought that the person complaining about other people being dirty meant they were clean. I thought the people complaining about people taking up spaces in the gym, in the grocery store, in traffic, and etc. Meant that, oh, okay, so we have a whole coalition of people who are excellent drivers and excellent cooks and great parents and great neighbors and great lovers because clearly so many complaints online about the people who not there must be some invisible enemy somewhere sitting in the corner making all of these people complain because we're just a good society. But no, it's not. A lot of people actually are so shameful of them own selves that they notice their flaws in other people and they try to highlight that other person's flaws unconsciously to justify them not handling their own because it's easier to say, okay, I have this particular area I need to work on. But oh, look at that person. Theirs is 20 times worse than mine. So honestly, for me, that was where I started increasing my peace because it's one thing to have peace at home, but when I would go out in the world, I would feel a little bothered that okay, it doesn't feel as good as it does being at home, which makes you want to just stay inside all of the time. But that's not the way life is supposed to be because why should I become a recluse because these musty headed hoes is in public taking up spaces and being ignorant and being not even just ignorant really because and not to mention online, like I'm so disappointed in humanity because the way that y'all give one group of people all of these flaws, when I personally see people of all shapes and sizes being idiots, they have fine idiots, tall idiots, short idiots, white idiots, overseas idiots, black idiots, like all types of it. People are just dumb when they dumb, and when they not, they not. And honestly, the reason that we will never have progress collectively, no matter what group it is trying to make progress, is because the instant that you make a trait and give it to a whole group of people. So if you had bad experiences with dating women, and then your new thing is to say all women are this, all women are that, all men are this, all men are that, people who that does not apply to, who don't like, who feel the need to defend the whole group, like all of these groups. I don't know if you realize a lot of people are subconsciously linked to groups. If a person is a woman, they're with certain groups for women. If a man is a man, there's certain groups for men. If it's people from different places in the world, but then other countries, it's certain groups. So like y'all, if you really want to make a change, just focus on the behavior and not by giving a crown to a particular group of people doing it, because that's false. I know it feels good. It really does sometimes, especially when it comes to dating. It's so fun to say, oh, dating is trash. Everyone is this, everyone is that. But actually, that's more of a reflection of yourself. Because if that's all you able to summarize from your experiences, you're not able to see anything else. You're not able to see, okay, well, yes, people are bad with this, but a lot of people are actually good with this. Or I noticed that everyone who was bad with this, they had a childhood that went this way, or they have parents like this, or they didn't have parents. It's so much more. And until you start being more curious, instead of trying to lazily summarize everything, then and not to mention letting these people online gas y'all up. I will say it every video, y'all, please. You do not know these people. I don't care how many followers they have. I don't care how many videos, what their videos helped you do. You do not know if these people are performing. You do not know what they really stand for. Like, it's very dangerous game that we are able to get attached to this many people, at least with fame. People had to work to get to fame, even if it was given to them, but it was a limited amount of celebrities. Now with social media and all of these different websites, a lot of the people are using psychology against y'all. As you can see, well, you might not see, but a lot of my videos have a psychological element to them. And it really is scary at how it is so easy to farm people's attention, because it's not for anything else. These people are not in your neighborhoods helping you and your family, or at your local schools encouraging these kids to be better. They're online taking all of the negative and putting either your name on it, or trying to make you feel better by putting someone else's name on it, and then encouraging you to go back and forth with those people. This is not healthy for a lot of people. You're not supposed to be this upset all of the time. Not to mention our bodies, especially if you don't regulate yourself, your body takes certain things as a physical attack. So a lot of y'all are experiencing and simulating being under attack all of the time. Like, please, you don't have to just quit cold turkey, but please like expand your algorithm. Look at things that make you feel good. Like, because now it's like this weird addiction to where people scroll because they bored, but you're not looking at things that make you smile, that make you laugh, that encourage you to keep going. It's like things to talk about other people, things to encourage, like to reinforce your pain. If somebody put you through something, there's content to reinforce you hating that, or you becoming bitter against that. Like, not to mention, these people are grouping y'all against other people, and the people that's grouping y'all are not doing a damn thing but sitting behind the camera. They don't have any volunteer hours. They don't do any mentorships. They haven't spoken at gaming summer camps for the youth, for the future, and telling all of those kids that really is don't seem like it, but y'all really are the future. All of this information y'all have is very powerful, and that was one of the speeches I gave. But I'm not about to talk about none of that, because a lot of the stuff I do, I really don't like people to know, because I would rather you assume who you thought you knew. Because when, like, people are so used to summarizing everybody, the average person who meets me does not meet me. They don't know anything about me except what I was doing in that moment. If they met me at the gym, they assume I'm a gym head. If they meet me at the grocery store, they assume I eat healthy. If they saw me driving, they assume that I work for NASCAR, not because I speed, but because I'm good at turning. Very good at turning. I'm one of the few people that don't have to slam on brakes when we have those curving areas in the road, which still shocks me that if you from New Orleans, you drive these roads regularly. Why are you slamming on brakes instead of coasting? Anyways, so yeah, just please be careful out there, and things you have in life, take it one thing at a time. If you have financial issues, health issues, and everything else, focus on the health first, but you can also be learning different things about finances, and be okay with the fact that some things could have been due to you not knowing, which means okay, you didn't know, however you still did it. It was not until I start, well, I've always taken blame for everything because I was a scapegoat, but it wasn't until when I looked at financial things, and I really looked at financial things and broke it down purchase by purchase, that I was able to free myself. You can't free yourself from what you refusing to acknowledge that it exists. If your emergency brake is on, but you in denial that your emergency brake on, when you trying to drive, your car is going to give you hell until you turn the emergency brake off. If your door is locked, if you act like there's no lock on the door, but you keep twisting the knob and trying to get in the house and saying, "Oh, something locked me out the house," that's what it looks like when it comes to other things. And it's not to not say that people don't deserve understanding, but you're supposed to give yourself understanding. Coming out here in the world looking for people to give you understanding is a trap. That's why people manipulate people. They know that a lot of people are emotionally vulnerable and they take advantage of that. It is so easy to start an account and amen everything. Oh yeah, you broke. It ain't your fault. It's your mom and your daddy fault, and it's the aliens' fault, and it's the dog that was barking the other night and you couldn't sleep. It's his fault. If you always late to work, it's your car fault because it should fly. It's your manager fault because they should reverse time for you. Like, that kind of life is miserable. I know people like that. I'm 30 something soon. Somebody birthday coming up, but and I have been able to watch the generation before me continue cycles that they were doing when I was a child and they still doing now, if they're alive. A lot of them did. And then I watch people in my generation pick up their parents' habits and become twin them. And then I've also, dear God, watched people have kids. Like, people have been having kids since I was 12. Well, I mean, not the world, but people I know have been having kids since I was 12. So the third generation has been started since I was 12 years old. So a lot of those are in their 20s. And you literally able to see the pattern. So my hope for people is that, number one, you stop giving yourself mental prison sentences over things you've done. Like, that is fine, but it's not going to get you anywhere. It's only going to slow you down. It's only going to further your resentment. It's only going to add to the emotional jungle a lot of people have in their bodies, to the point where people think it's normal to just have explosive temper tantrums over everything as a grown ass adult. But that is it for this video. I intentionally made it short so I can have more time to rant. And that was it. Y'all have a good one and stop being a scapegoat.